many of you know Dianne Miller. I know when you came in, you went right over to say hi to her. And I called her, she called me at 5:30 yesterday and was willing to fill in for Sam Vokey, who had unplanned oral surgery today. Yeah, that's what I said. And he really sounded like he was in pain when I talked to him. But he called Dianne and he asked Dianne to fill in for him. And she very kindly, very last minute said yes. And she's no stranger to Dedham. She's been here before. And she does great work, as you can see. So Sam was going to do a coastal scene, and Dianne is going to do a coastal scene. She's so accommodating. She's so nice. And she's also going to donate tonight. So please, during the break, if you haven't had a chance to enter the drawing, please do. So I'm going to introduce Dianne.
Well, it's good to be back, and I am so happy to see a few familiar faces in here. It's probably been about 5 years since I've been here now, before COVID just shut everything down. But I've been busy. Sam and I went to the same school. His wife went to Vespa George with me. We both took from Robert Cormier. I've known Sam forever, and pleased that he called me to replace him. I hope that I can do him justice. But we are from the same school, so I do teach a lot of similar stuff. Today I'm going to be doing something. I just got back from Florida on Sunday, and I was down at Amelia Island where the waves come one after the other. So if you need to study waves, that is the place to do it. And we weren't disappointed this week. We had beautiful weather the whole time. It was really hot, but we managed. So today I'm going to work on some dual-sided Da Vinci panels. One side is really smooth and the other side is like a medium texture. I used to use these all the time, but they're kind of getting expensive now. So when I work outside, I work with Centurion panels a lot. I find that they are a good quality canvas and not too expensive. Over here, you can see a lot of my plein air pieces. I did several paintings while I was in Florida as well. I've slowed down quite a bit since 2020. I used to do 3 to 5 paintings a day. Now I do maybe 1 or 2. But I'm still a busy person. Lately I've been just inundated with commissions. So today I'm going to work with the Boston School palette, which, oh, you got it, okay. So on one side, you can see there's all cool colors, and the other side, one side is warm colors and the other is cool. And then of each of the colors is a warm and cool of each of the colors on the palette. So if I see something that's in the shadow, I'm going to pick something that's cool because shadows are cool. And if I see something that's hit by the sun, I'm going to pick one of my warm colors. Now, this isn't the best color wheel around anymore. It's been used quite a bit. I do have to invest in another one. But you can see here, alizarin crimson is closer to the cool side of if you look at a color wheel, this is cool and this is warm. Alizarin is closer to the cool side, cad red medium is closer to the warm side. Then we have lemon yellow, which is closer to the cool side, cad yellow deep is closer to the warm side. Then we get a little tricky. Yellow ochre is my warm green, and although it doesn't look like green, if you're painting grass in the sunlight, boy, does that work well. And Viridian is close to the cool side, so that's my cool color. Now, blue is the coolest color on the palette, so it's been debatable which is cool, which is warmer. But I like to use my cerulean blue as my warmer. And you can see how much paint I put down, especially the white. It's a high-key painting. There's not a lot of darks in it. So I'd rather have more on my palette so I don't have to keep adding more. When you're outside, time is your commodity. And you really have to work quick. Okay, you can see I have a million brushes. So every time I take a new, need a new color, I'm gonna also use a different brush. So you can see basically all my big brushes are flat and all my smaller brushes are round with a few flat brushes and brights dabbled in and out of these. So I just have a ton because I don't want to sit there cleaning my brushes and wasting my time. If you're outside, especially at sunset, the sun moves very, very quickly, and you have to really, get busy. You can't waste time on your stuff. Everything is always in the same place, like the keys of the piano, so I don't have to search for them. And I'm used to my supplies. This is Mary Poppins carpet bag here. I have everything you need, and then probably for two people, because most of the times when I was teaching, somebody would forget something and I'd save their day. Now I'm gonna be using Bounty paper towel and Viva paper towel that has no texture to it. And this is really important, especially for this scene here, because I'll show you a couple techniques that I think you'll like. Okay, so generally when I start a painting, I like to ask myself, what color do you see the most here? And what color do you think you see the most right now? Okay. Now, there is really no blue in this painting, but I do see yellow, okay? This is more of a gray, and gray is a neutral. So I'm gonna look at the yellow, and I'm gonna say my color harmony is yellow and purple. Color harmony is two colors that are across the wheel from each other. And if you're looking at something, you just ask yourself, what color do you see the most of? And that becomes your harmony. So one is a primary color, and the other is a secondary color. Yes, that's purple down there. So purple is made of red and blue. Basically, if you use yellow, red, and blue, you can get any color on the canvas, but I have a cool red, yellow, and blue, and a warm yellow, red, and blue. So I know that what to choose when I'm working in the shadow and when I'm working in the light. Okay, so when I look at this painting, so basically I don't really need my greens out because I'm not going to be using it at all. I'm going to be using yellow and purple. So when I start my painting, I like to tone my board, not as much as I used to, but I used to always have my students do it. And basically what I see is this beautiful yellow throughout the painting. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of, I'm using Gamsol, which is mineral spirits, and it loosens the paint much nicer than, say, the other mediums that are out there, which I don't really even use anymore, so I can't even remember the name. So basically, I'm just using a big brush here, a long bristle brush, and I'm just going to tone this. It takes me a minute. And now I have a color underneath everything that I don't have to keep putting paint down for. I mean, it's going to simply be there. So I'm saving a lot of time by doing this. And right now I'm using my yellow ochre because all the yellows in there are what's hit by the sun. So I'm using my warm yellow in here. So now I'm just going to wipe most of this off. Okay, so basically that looks like the sky already. It took me less than a minute to do, and I really don't have to do more to that if I don't want to. Okay, and feel free to ask questions. I can paint and chew gum at the same time. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I always, after 40 years of painting, still use my viewfinder, and this is simply a frame that was cut kitty corner. Okay, so what I would do is I would bring this here to my canvas to figure out what dimension will work when I'm looking. So basically I lined up my edges with this, and this right now is the same dimension as that. So if I was to look out in life, I would go like this, and I see that. Now this is the same dimension as that. That's just bigger. So I really don't need this because I'm gonna pretend this is my viewfinder. Okay. Just put the bug spray in my bag today. So right when I do a painting, I like to set my darks first and work into my lights. I want to keep my darks thin and transparent and my lights thick and juicy. Once you stop putting white down, it's hard to get those darks back again. So by putting the darks in first, they're gonna remain as dark as I want, or I can simply blend them with the lights as they come on. The first half of my painting is gonna be rather thin. I add my thick paint on at the end, because when your paint gets too thick, you can't fix it anymore. Okay, so right now I'm just gonna mix a little splotch of my ultramarine blue and my alizarin crimson. I just want to see what color I have there. So basically, if I don't use any white, it just looks like black, but there really are no darks in this, so I added a little white to it. By putting this down here,
I'm just gonna close.
that's great, thank you. So by putting this down, now I have an idea of whether this is too light or too dark. I don't want to do any guesswork in this. And if I put this down and it's not the right color or value, I'm going to change it rather than putting it down and then having to fix it. So again, it's a time saver here. So I'm just going to come a little bit down here and say, all right, there's my horizon. Horizons on the ocean are always level, sea level. So eye level is if you bring your brush out in front of your eyes and you bring it to the edge here, that's always level. If you're sitting, it's level. If you're standing on a hill and looking at the ocean, it's level. Okay, so if you have a horizon, don't make it crooked. Okay, so right now, my goal is to fill the canvas in the first half hour. I would tell my students an hour, I can probably do it in 10 minutes. But I'm not trying to be perfect at this point, all right? So if I make a mess, I'm just trying to get my colors and my composition down. All right, so I have this paint here. I made a nice puddle here. So if I cut this painting in half here, which is about here, I can see that this starts a little bit below that. Okay, and then if I bring this to this side here, and that's half, that starts that wave about there. And this is moving water, so, you know, generally I fix these waves after I've come home to make them a little bit more attractive or to make them kind of feel like they're flowing a little bit more. So here I have this little piece coming here. This is coming down here. And then I see that here, and then I'm looking here, that's about where the shadow comes for that wave. This wave is doing that. And that is all the drawing I need. And when I'm outside, doesn't matter if I'm painting buildings or whatever, that is all the drawing I need because I'm gonna wreck it. So if I do this beautiful drawing, I don't want to fill it in like a coloring book. I want to just get the feel of those colors in here. So I have this color on my brush, I like it, so I'm just gonna fill it in real quick. Okay, now it's better if I use a bigger brush because it takes me less time to fill it. So I'm just gonna take a little bit more paint. And I'm using a bigger brush now, it's gonna use more. Now, right now, I've just made a purple. The second I add yellow to it, which is this complementary color, it's gonna dull it down. So I want to keep things colorful for a while before I start going in and ruining that color. So you see this here, takes me a little bit less time because I'm using a big brush. I'm not using any more Gamsol at this time unless my paint is a little bit too thick, which I might need to do with the yellows because my yellow is on the thick side here. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more white to this. Now I can get this in here, and that's a little bit too light, so I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more blue and red, and that's better. I like that better. Okay, now I've been painting for a long time. I won't tell you how long, but long time. I went to Bessemer George College of Art, which was a 3-year school. Then I was in a 5-year atelier and I studied for 3 years with various teachers, with the main one being Robert Cormier. So I've been painting a long time. And when I left there, Sam came into my studio and used that for a while. And I was out painting 3 to 5 paintings, 5 to 7 days a week for years after that. And then I had my daughter and I was I had to bartend. I was a bartender to support my habit. And so seriously, I work 16 hours a day until still I'm doing that for the most part. So if I paint fast, don't get upset. It's because I've got the time in and the experience, so I kind of know what I'm doing. My students are they're my friends now because I'm not teaching anymore. They just get so upset because I'm practically done by the time they're setting up their easels. Right, Ellen?
It's true.
All right, so there, so basically that's what I want there. So now I'm gonna take some white to get these, start with these waves in here. Let's just see what color I have here. That's just a little bit too light there. I do like this in here. I'm gonna add just a little bit of yellow that now because I want these to be a little bit greener, this to be a little bit greener than this in here. So I'm adding a little bit more blue and yellow just to get that. And let's see what we get. And that's too dark. So see, I checked that and I always double check everything I do. So I don't sit there and fill this whole thing in with this color and it's wrong and then have to go back in here. And I'm using a big brush so I can put down these nice planes. And I fill the area very quickly. This is just a little bit darker, so every time I mix a color, I make another puddle, so I have lots of colors to choose from too. So this right now, if you look at this and you squint your eyes, you can't really see where one ends and the other begins because of the same values. This is very green and this is very red. Okay, so basically I want to keep my values to about 3 here. Because it's just a little bit more exciting. So I'm just going to throw this down. Again, I don't know if this is going to be right or wrong until I have all my colors in and I can see how they look together. Okay. I'm just going to make this a little bit lighter back here. Not everywhere, but over here I like it a little bit darker, and here I like it a little bit lighter. I'd say the sun is about right about here off the page, but you can kind of get a feel where it's closer. The sun is closer, it gets a little bit lighter, and then it gets darker as we move away here. Okay, now when I have a color on my brush, I like to use it everywhere before I go the next color. Therefore, I'm conserving my time. And it forces me to look all around my painting, so I don't get stuck in one spot. There's nothing worse than somebody working in one spot for 3 hours, and then they go to work somewhere else and they go, oh my God, it's not right. And they don't want to fix it because they're falling in love with all the work that they've done. Okay, so it gets me to move all the way around my painting and I get to add more color without any effort. So I'm squinting my eyes basically all the time, just so I can see my values better and see my edges too. I'm thinking about my edges right now, but I'm not too concerned. Again, this is my beginning here. Okay, now I'm going to go a little bit darker. I'm just going to, I think as things get closer to you, they get warmer and brighter. So I want to reserve my bright warm colors for the foreground and my cool dark colors for the background. So even though all these colors kind of look the same, there's a little bit more reds, pure reds in here without being mixed with the other colors, but I have to add a little blue just to keep it on the purple side. Otherwise it's going to be out of harmony. So that feels good. Okay, again, I have this color on my brush. I might put a little bit of this up in here too as the wave is going to curl. Okay, and can I use this anywhere else? When I tried it up here, it's just a little bit too red. I'm just going to add a little bit of blue to that. And that's just going to give the illusion that this is farther away than this here. Okay, and again, while I have this color on my brush, I might as well put a little bit of it in there. Okay, so if you look at it, it's basically done. It's just needs details to it. And that's the trick. A lot of times people want to make the painting perfect too soon. I'm just trying to finish it. So right now I'm gonna put aside my cool colors and now I'm gonna go into my warm colors. So I'm gonna probably go with a smaller brush. This is again, I love these long bristle brushes here because I want to keep my my lights on the soft side. So I'm just mixing a little puddle. When I work with my light colors, I like to take my white and work my colors into it. So it's a purple and yellow harmony. So I'm gonna start my warm yellow first, and let's just see what we get here. Okay, and I like to keep paper towel in my hand so I can keep wiping off some of the dirt that might accumulate. And now I'm gonna paint just a little bit thicker than I just did, so it goes over the colors that I just used. And if you find that your paint is blending with what's underneath it, then you either have to paint thicker or you have to take some of that thick paint off. And I'm not at that point yet because I don't really have my whole canvas covered yet. It looks right because I started with that yellow background. So I'm squinting like my life depended on it. Now I'm just going to add just a little bit of my cad red medium just to warm this up. But if I do that, I also have to add just a teeny bit of my cerulean blue, just so it's still a purple and yellow harmony, because otherwise that red will look wrong. So I'm using the side of my brush, the bottom of my brush to make the line, the hard line that you're seeing. And I'm going to use the side of my brush to make some of this spray. Okay, now I'm just gonna make it a little bit thicker here, and I can go in and repair some of that. Still has yellow in it, even though it looks white. And that's just a little bit too light, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the other colors. And that's why it's nice to make nice big puddles, so you don't have to keep mixing new colors over and over and over again. So I'll be doing a portrait demo in Rockport, I think it's next month. Joe McGurl is there tomorrow night, so if you want to see somebody that is #1, he is certainly #1. And he grew up in Quincy, so it's nice to know that there's a lot of local artists that are really, really good. So I'm just going around the whole canvas until it's covered everything that I need. And now this is way too dark in here, so I'm going to take another brush. I like to use lots of brushes, so I'm going back to my big brush here, and I'm going to try to get this little shadow from the waves in here. So it's okay to go back. When I'm filling up my canvas, I always forget something, and because I have the brush aside, I'm using lots of brushes, I have the color there already, so I don't have to mix it again, so I've saved more time. Yeah, I have to go home and clean more brushes, but time is my commodity here. I have plenty of time when I get home to clean my brushes. So if anyone comes up with an idea of how to clean your brushes without being there, let me know, because I think it's everybody's worst chore here. So I have this color here. Again, sometimes I use this like a point, sometimes I use the top, and now I'm going to use the side because the waves are going like this here. I'm trying to get this in the front here. They're making a plane that's going straight up and down. So as I'm repairing the color, I'm also thinking about the direction of my brush strokes in here.
I have a question, Diane.
Sure.
It seems like that space is very dark, like are you, does it feel dark to you working in that light?
My paintings, oh, I love working where it's a little bit darker. It's not for everybody, but what happens is your eyes dilate and you see more color. So when you put it in the light, you're surprised by how really good your painting looks. It's just something, you know, I paint the nude in Rockland, and his room is really dark, and it's just something that I've observed and that I find that I really like, because when the paintings come home, I'm like, wow, that's great. So don't be afraid of the dark. And also, when I do a painting, a lot of my students would complain, oh, my painting's so dark. Well, I started dark, but I always adjust it up. So right now I have a lot of paint on my canvas. And the nice thing about that is I can blend on my canvas. If I don't use enough paint, then I have to add more paint, and I'm not blending, and blending is really fun to do on your palette. So don't be afraid of that. I'm going to show you how to work with that in a minute. So again, I've got this big brush here. I noticed that I've missed this part in here. So I'm just going to throw that in real quick. Now, if I use a small brush, I'd be here all day going, oh, so don't be afraid to use paint. Now here, I just want to bring this up a little bit because I noticed that I missed that. So I have that color on my brush. And that's not a big deal.
Diane, we're missing what you're doing on the left side, so is it possible for you to stand just like a couple of inches to your left?
Okay, yep. So, yeah, so again, I'm going in here just a little bit darker because I wanted this part under here, right here, to be a little bit lighter. There we go. Okay. So now I've got it all basically in. I'm kind of happy with how everything is looking. I still have this color on my brush. I'm just going to go in here and make a couple repairs. And now, this is how I keep my paint in check. Okay, so now I'm using the Viva paper towel. And usually once I've got my whole canvas covered, I like to go in and just put this down on my painting and rub it really hard, as long as I don't move the towel, I'm not going to make a mess. And this is taking off the excess paint. So I'm going to have a nice thin canvas to work on, so it'll be easy for me to make my repairs. Okay. Sometimes you have to do it more than once. I haven't done the sky yet. Okay, so now the paint's really thin. Now what I like to do with the Bounty, and don't use the cheap stuff. The Bounty is really important because it's soft enough, but it's strong enough to do some of these things that I want to do. So right now I might just use this to drag some of this paint off on the horizon so it's soft. You can only focus on one thing at a time when you're seeing things. So if I'm looking at you, the rest of the audience gets really fuzzy. So if I'm staring at these beautiful clouds, even though when you look directly at the horizon, it's very sharp, you shouldn't paint it that way because you want to save your sharp edges for your center of interest. And that's going to be my waves. So you see, I'm kind of manhandling my painting and I'm not ruining it. All right, so that's always kind of a shock to people. Now what I can do is I can play and just pull the paint around, looking for some of these soft edges, maybe taking a little bit of the dark out of there, trying to think of what this wave is doing. It's rushing up and tipping over. So I'm thinking about the movement of the waves in here. So that's why I don't spend too much time at the beginning, because I'm going to play. So in the old days, I used to do, when I painted, I used to do 3 sessions for each painting. 3 hours to start, 3 hours the next day in the same conditions to play, and then the third day would be the finishing. Now I can do that in 3 hours. What I used to take, 3 times to do. So that's kind of fun. It doesn't always go that nicely, but that's how I plan it. So right now, that first, I don't know what time it is, 7:30, that first half hour was me filling my canvas. Now the next half hour is gonna be me playing. And not worrying still too much about the details. The details come last. Okay, so each time I use a piece of this, I'm cleaning it off. And now I can make some of this spray in here. There's not a lot of paint on this, so it lets me pull this paint without it getting dirty everywhere. So I like the spray because it adds more action to my painting. Look at that. Paper towel. Sometimes I try to do a whole painting with my paper towel. Just to stay loose. Because you've got to experiment, right? Okay, now I can do that with a few of these. This is moving water, so you're not going to have any sharp lines. There's no sharp lines in nature. This is moving water, which makes it extremely hard to paint. But the thing I like about Amelia Island is these waves just come one after the other, and they all look exactly the same. So it's really easy for you to study them. Not like Nantasket where they come down here and there and you gotta wait for the next one. It's hard because it's moving. And I'm looking for accidental mistakes. If I play on here and try to make everything perfect, I might not get a happy accident. And that's what really adds magic to your paintings. You don't want it to be static and still like a photograph. If I paint this like a photograph, people are gonna go up to and go, wow, that's so nice, it looks just like a photo, and then walk away bored. But if you give these soft edges and these magical brush strokes, they're gonna go, wow, how did they do that? And then they're gonna get sucked in and go home with the painting. So give yourself have a little bit of fun out there. And not every painting you do is gonna be great. Even to this day, after painting for over 40 years, I still get a lot of clunkers. If you could see my house, I have thousands of painting in my house. You haven't been there lately. I had to use a room now to set up my paintings. It's absolutely nuts. Okay, so I'm still with the paper towel. Now I can dip a little bit of it in my Gansol. This is a little bit too dark down here. So look at how easy it takes the paint off, and it still looks delicious. So now what I'm working on here is called a gorilla box. I've never seen them this size. I don't know where I found this. I wish I bought 10 of them when I did. But the gorilla box are about 3 inches thick. So they take a little bit, they're a little bit heavier. But this here has 2 canvases in it right now, but I could put 3 wet canvases in here. If I go into the city, I like to do 3 paintings. And I can stick them all in here without them getting ruined. I can close my box and not get my car destroyed. I absolutely love it. And I've seen every box out there and you can't argue with me on it. It's just great. I love it. And then, this box here is probably 10 years old and it's still in pretty good condition. I have a $50 easel on there. I wouldn't go any cheaper or more expensive. The cheaper ones are too flimsy. This is pretty sturdy. And the more expensive ones aren't any better. And a lot of times I'll put like an 18 by 24 on here and I'll tape it to the back with duct tape, which I have on here now, and it holds it. And then I'll use the tape and tape the back and use it as a handle and carry it back to my car. So I absolutely love this box. And if you see him skinny like this, give me a call. Excuse me. All right, so now my paint is thin. I've got some fun stuff going. So stage 2, start from your darks and work into your lights again. Because you want to keep your darks thin and transparent and your lights thick and juicy. And the reason for that is when your painting is hanging on a wall and a light strikes it, if the black is really thick and the light strikes that first, it's going to make it appear lighter than it actually is. So that's why you want your lights to be thick and juicy, because when the light hits those thick parts, it makes them look lighter and more luminous. So, and a variety is the spice of life. You want some thick, some thin, some dark, some light, and never even, always on. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go back to my purples. And I'm not afraid to add a little yellow now. I've got a little bit of color in there. It's probably all I need. So by adding yellow, it's going to get a little bit duller. Oh, and that color is just what I want in here. So now I can go and repair some of these areas that I might have ruined as I was repairing things. And sometimes, again, I use the side of my brush, and sometimes I use the point. Right now I'm doing a little of both. Okay, and I was really studying the waves this time. I was looking at some of my paintings and some of my photos next to real life and trying to see, a lot of times when you work from photos, your paintings become too blue or too dark, or because the photos lie. So I want to see how close, with my experience of bringing a photo that I've taken on a canvas and compared it to what I really see in life, and I was pretty happy about that. I'm still learning though. And that's what you have to tell yourself. It doesn't matter how long you've been painting. The exciting thing about art is that you always keep learning. The second that you stop learning, that's when you should quit. So what I did notice about the waves in this case is they were a little bit darker, and then they caught the light, a little iridescence in here before they became dark again. Because all the pictures that I was taking were right at sunrise. We were right on the beach. We'd wake up before the sunrise, and if you go on my Facebook, you can see a lot of the pictures, but it was just amazing there, and that's the only reason I go to this place.
And where was that?
Amelia Island in Florida, which is
Florida.
right over the coast of Georgia,
Okay.
so right by Jacksonville.
You know, I noticed that the painting that you're using as a reference, to me, it looks more, I see more green in it than you're using here. Will you be adding that in?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm still not at the point of finishing.
Right.
Right now I'm repairing. So in stage 2, I try to go back and make everything a little bit better,
Mhm.
not necessarily finishing it.
Mhm.
And each time I go back, I ask myself, what's the worst thing in the painting? And I try to make that the best. And then the next worst thing shows up, and your big mistakes get smaller and smaller and smaller until your painting is done. And it's a really disciplined way of working through your painting without getting too confused.
Mm.
And it sounds easy to say, and which is very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. And you know, people struggle with that. So again, I'm trying to stay in my discipline. What the Boston School taught you was discipline. You spent 2 years in the atelier. We spent the first 2 years working from casts and black and white and measuring and learning values, and really, you know, my drawing ability is probably my best quality because of this training every day, measuring perfectly the math and everything. So right now, when I draw, that's innate to me because I just spend so much time doing it, and then I've spent the last 40 years practicing it. And then from there, once you were proficient at that, then they moved you into color. And once you were better at that, then they moved you into life. So we painted from the model in black and white and then in color. And then we went outside and painted in black and white and then in color. And then, you know, for the next millions of years there, it was just experience.
And was that at Vesper George?
No, Vespa George came first, and there Robert Douglas Hunter, Robert Cormier, we had some of the greatest teachers, Dave McQuaid, oh my God, Jim, oh my God, I can't even remember his name, it's been so long. But a lot of great artists have come from there, Carol Arnold, who's now working with Nancy Guzik. Sam Boke's wife, Hannah Boke, she's doing some amazing work right now. Sergio Raffo, he went to Vespa George. So the reason I went there is because it was taught by people who were actively painting and not necessarily teachers of art. So they were professional artists, and I didn't have any academics there, which I'm not good at anything. So that was perfect for me. And once I figured out what I wanted to do, I didn't stop. It was like, I always felt like I needed more time. So even I went into Vespa George at 17, even at that age, I knew I better hurry up. And I've been that way my whole life. And I'm lucky because a lot of people now are getting into art when they're older and they don't have that time. So they feel rushed and they want to skip a lot of the training that I took, which is unfortunate because that's what made me such a good artist. So I'm just kind of going by now. When I see shapes here, this is simply a triangle. This is a heart shape. I like to add hearts secretly in my paintings everywhere. It's just a little thing that I do. So I like to have one really good heart usually somewhere hidden in the painting. It's my thing. All right, so I'm still using a lot of just the purple with not much yellow in there. Again, I'd rather put the darks down first and then come in with the lights because it'll be easy to fix. It's easier to put the lights over the darks than vice versa. So here's my little heart there. And now I'm going to take these darks and I made this a little bit too red in here, so I'm coming back with a little bit of blue. Now, I'd like to invite you guys up here at this point, just to kind of see how soft and loose this is. So I just want to kind of make a line going through. Again, you can even see how much paint is on there. This is probably a good stage for you to do it at, because from here, I'm going to try to go into the finish. So please.
And I think it's a great time for.
So now again, I'm in pretty good control of my painting here. So the rest is just going to be a lot of dabbling. Now, the background, now that the painting is done, now I can start adding, close to finish, I should say, some thick paint. So a lot of times what I like to do when I paint is I like to make the painting perfect, and then I like to kind of mess it up a little bit. Again, looking for the happy accidents, just like I've done here. So now I'm going to put some nice thick paint on there, and you want some thick and some thin. So you can see almost, if you're up here, how luxurious these strokes look like, and it's going down like butter. And I really like these canvases if you have never tried them before. And if you do a bad job, you simply turn it over and use the other side. So, and I've done that. So now I can just add some nice, yummy, delicious paint. And I want the sky to be a little bit darker than the highlights of my waves. So when I paint the sky, I kind of like to do this just so I don't have these straight lines going back and forth. I'm also dragging my brush along the horizon, trying to make it softer. Now, Tom Dunley is teaching an atelier like I took now. So if you're looking for something that is really disciplined and really want to learn how to draw, that's the place to go. So I totally recommend it. Tell him I sent you. But he's the guy that painted that scene, that iconic snow scene of people crossing the bridge in the public gardens with the snow all splattered over there. And he likes to paint. He also does workshops down in Nantucket too. So now I put those lines down. That looks good. That looks good. So again, I'm going to ask myself, what's the worst thing in the painting? And just keep working from there. Trying to make it the best thing. And once I do that, the next worst thing comes up. Until there's nothing worse about it anymore. Okay, now when you have a color in your brush, you want to use it everywhere before you go to the next color. So now I can start putting some of these lights back in, and brights work really good for that. They really put nice planes down of color in here. This is still my fat flat brush. In here, and I think that these waves are really, these two waves here are really playing with each other for attention. And I'm constantly looking for the good things in my painting as well as the bad things. Because if I do something good here, I don't want to ruin it. So a lot of times people overwork their paintings because they think there's something wrong. But usually when something's wrong, it's not what they're looking at. It's something that they haven't done yet. So that's why it's important to keep moving around your painting over and over and over. So I think I'm having more fun with this painting now than when I painted it originally. Yeah, okay. Sorry. It's kind of hard working from the side when you're used to working like that, but I'm doing my best. Just keep reminding me if I forget. So here you can see now I've got some of these soft things, I've got some hard things. And it's really starting to come along, and it's a little bit different up there than the other one, but it's still, each wave is different. So now I can use some of this color. This is when I can do a little bit of blending. This color that I put down here was a little bit too dark, and the color I'm using is a little bit too light. So I'm blending right on my canvas. So it really makes my job easier by using more, by filling my canvas and using more paint rather than not enough paint. In here. So the rest, the rest of the painting would probably be a little bit boring compared to the beginning. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than starting a painting. So now I can start adding a little bit more color. You see, I put a color there and tested it. I didn't keep going. I want to make sure it's right before I keep going. So I use a little bit of ultramarine blue with a little bit of my lemon yellow because I'm still in the shadow parts. And when I go to the sky and the highlights, then I'm using my warm colors. And I'm using a really light touch, and I'm kind of almost scumbling my color on top of it because it's kind of dry right now because I've taken a lot of the paint off. So what I've discovered recently is Gambar varnish, which has really been a godsend for me. What I like to do when I go out plein air painting, I like to sell my paintings off the easel. So like say I'm painting at Coast Guard Beach down in Eastham. I will go at the bottom of the stairs and set up there. So everybody coming on the beach is going to see me and everybody going off the beach is going to see me. Because if people see you painting and they see you start and finish, they fall in love with your paintings and they buy your paintings. And I sell a number of my paintings off the easel. And I love to talk to people. Being outside for me, painting is joyful. Being in the studio is more like going to work every day. I I love to paint outside. I also paint at weddings. So I go in and I'll paint their bows. I'll go in a little bit early and paint the background. And when the people come in, I put the people in. If you go on my website, you can see a lot of my examples. And then I close up everything and I run inside and then I do a 16 by 20 of the first dance. And then I have all the people kind of put a mark on it so it becomes everybody's painting. And it's really quite fun. But you have to have nerves of steel and you have to be fast and you have to do a good job. So it's not for everybody. But I usually need like 3 days off after I do that because there's so much work. It's so hard. You're on your feet for 10 hours. You have to be entertaining and you have to do a good job. So see, now I'm just kind of blending and rubbing and scumbling and playing with the colors on here. Until it looks finished. And it gets a little bit, so if you have any questions, probably now is a good time to ask them because this isn't as exciting to watch at this point. But I did do a demo for Art School Live with Plein Air Magazine, and I have over 11,000 views on it. So if you go on YouTube and look me up, you can also see it, and it's free. So that was a lot of fun and really nice. Cindy Barron ended up taking over for Eric Rhodes while he was on vacation, and we had painted together a few times. She might be there next week. She's done it a few times at the Marblehead thing, and she called me. I was so happy. I used to see it, in the magazine and online and everything. I'm like, oh, they'll never call me. And I had 11,000 views, which is more than a lot of. It was great. Felt good. So there are a few of my demos on there as well. So if you like this, you can kind of look it up. So a lot of times these waves have these little suds that are kind of coming up and pushing these waves up and leaving behind this little residue. I don't think anyone does it better than Dawn Demers, who did the demo last month in Rockport. I think Rockport has probably the highest caliber of artists in one place right now. But if you look at my brochure and you'll see my website on there. I'm also on Facebook, so I post just about once every day telling you what I'm doing and showing you my new work. So feel free to friend me and look up and I also have a blog, so it teaches you things like how to pack your paints when you go on trips and stuff. And we're going to Italy in September, a group of us artists, and we can only bring one suitcase because it's going to be really tight. So that's going to be a challenge. But I did it when we went to Florida this week, so I'm pretty sure I can do it. But it has advice on there as well. I will probably take either 8 by 10 or a 6 by 8. They also have these nice, the same company, it's judsonsart.com. I've been using them for years. It's the only thing I recommend for painting outside. I absolutely love it. And they have them in different sizes. So I'll probably take a smaller box because I can only bring one suitcase. The problem is when you do travel with your arts, it's really tough. It's hard, and traveling is for young people to begin with because it's so rough. Then you're carrying all these heavy supplies. And I mean, just going outside around here, you forget half your stuff. That's why, like, my car is my office. So I always have two bags of stuff, 2 sets of everything in case I forget something. So I don't ruin my day. Because I just feel like there's so little time left to become the kind of artist that I want to be. I'm not there yet. And I don't think that you should ever feel like you're there. But you can see I'm just playing on there. I'm simply just moving the paint around at this point. Look at my palette. I haven't even cleaned it off. I barely used any paint. So in this case, last week I did a demo in Franklin, which you can see online too, and it was one of the footbridges with daffodils and Beacon Hill behind it, and then the Hancock, and I did it in an hour and a half. I kind of blew my own mind in that one. Because Don Demers did his in an hour and a half. I had to do it too. So, like I said, he's got amazing artists in Rockport. His fiance, Jackie Jones, I met her. I drove cross country to Wyoming. I don't know if you know Claudia Post, but she put together these wonderful artists, and we painted in Wyoming for. I painted for a month, and half the other people painted for 2 weeks in two segments. I did 64 paintings in a month. I went out there with 20 bucks in my pocket. I sold 18 paintings. Came home with more money than. And I tell you, it was like the adventure of a lifetime. I drove out there by myself, painted in the Bighorn Mountains right under Sitting Bull's smoke signal area there, and it was just probably the most amazing thing I've ever done. So, and she's an amazing artist, and we just connected and had such a blast, her and Claudia and myself. We had Zufar Bibcock and David Lucier was there, and it was really just the greatest time. Just to be with a group of artists, like-minded, to be painting outside and to just, just work, morning, noon, and night. And then our landlord, who let us use his ranch, was like John Wayne, and I mean it. And he had a camp up in the Blue Hill Mountains, which was a national forest, and his was like the last one to be allowed to stay. And it was this hunting lodge. It was incredible. He had a place where he fed the moose. The moose came in. He had a zip line. He had a shooting range. He had a fishing hole. He had an ATV, and he took us around painting, and it was just so magical. That was probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And everybody told me not to do it, and I did it anyway. It was 2018. Yeah, I've done some crazy things. Just recently, I drove cross country to Colorado, put an RV on the back of my truck, so I can go out painting in it all the time. No, I got a dog, which was probably the worst. My husband passed away in 2020, and I got a dog. Here I am thinking I'm gonna have all this freedom, and the dog's more work than my husband was. But he doesn't yell at me, and he keeps me company. So don't get a dog if you want to paint all the time. My goal was to paint the plein air circuit around the country in that RV, and that's not going to happen now. The dog's afraid of everything. He's a rat terrier, and he's afraid of everything. So we live in the most beautiful part of the world, I think. So I guess I'll just have to get stuck painting here. You can see there's not much to this to kind of finish it. So what time? We have till 8:30, Naomi? Okay. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited. It's kind of scary doing this, but I'm definitely in my element. I love to do demos. It's one of my favorite things to do. So if you know any other organizations looking for it, when Sam called me, I was thrilled because I haven't been here in so long. I'm like, well, they're gonna get to know me again. Because I can do portraits, still lifes, landscapes, you name it. So there's always something to study. When I was in Italy one year, I was still in the J. Todd Gallery in Wellesley. And I guess the movie crew came to them and asked them to pick an artist to help John Travolta look like an artist in a movie that he did called The Forger. And they chose me. And I was in Italy with a painting group, and boy, did that kind of lighten everything up there. That was so fun. But when I got home, I had to be in the Guild of Movie Making, whatever that's called, so they didn't use me. But for a while, I thought I was going to be painting with John Travolta, so that was fun. It's great to be an artist because you get so many opportunities. It's like, I've had my picture taken more than supermodels, and you know, otherwise that would never happen. But you get to meet so many people, and you get to be in the middle of things, and you get all these opportunities. You know, it's such a wonderful thing to be as an artist, and I love it, and I'm still as obsessed by it as I've ever been. And I wake up at 6, I'm painting by 7. And I don't stop until my dog puts me to bed. And he does. He looks at me from every corner of the room until he's like, come on, Mom. Well, I used to work out a lot harder, so I guess I can allow myself to go to bed early every once in a while. So again, I'm still playing with the planes. This plane went up like that. This plane is doing that and kind of curling under. This one here is flat. So I'm making my brush strokes go like this. In my playing stage. I might use a Viver at any point if my paint gets too thick and I can't fix it, my paintings, then yeah, I might just take a small piece of it and just do it where I'm working. But now it's like when I go out painting, if I can't finish the painting there, I don't worry about it anymore because I have the experience and the memory that I can look at my photos and kind of know what's happening out there. And I've already caught the spirit of the painting. So it's just a matter of touching it up. If you go on my website too, it shows you all the gallery. I just got into a new gallery in Connecticut, the Thames River Gallery, and I'm in the in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, the N.W. Barrett Gallery. And I'm a Copley Master at the Copley Society. I'm probably the longest member still there. When I got in, I didn't have to pay, and I didn't have to, you know, do all the judging and stuff. They just let me in. That's how long ago it was. Now you have to pay so much money to be a member there. It's crazy. I usually have something, a box, like what I did last year. Plymouth has a concert there every Wednesday night, and I get a bunch of my friends, and we'd sell the paintings like it was like nothing. So we'd all bring boxes and everything so people could take them home. There's Venmo now, so you can get paid very easily. And again, if you start talking to me outside, chances are you're going to buy my painting because I have a spiel that works really good. But I sell most of my artwork on Facebook, believe it or not. So if you don't utilize that free product, then you're missing out. And I have so many paintings from so many places because I'm painting every day, all day long. If somebody doesn't see something that they like, I'm sure I have it somewhere else. You know, I lived in Gloucester for 2 years. I have a ton of Gloucester scenes. I like to go paint in Boston on Sundays because it's free parking. So I have a lot of Boston scenes. I used to teach on the South Shore, so I have a lot of ocean scenes and shore scenes. And then I have to go to Rockport because I'm a member up there. So I have a lot of the Gloucester Rockport area. You know, and I was saying to somebody else, Ransom there. Yeah, talking to him. Oh geez, I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, Caleb Stone and Don Stone and everything are doing really well. And what I've noticed is that if you put the time into it like I do, like any of the artists that you see that are doing really well are working 8 to 16 hours a day on their craft between the business and everything else. And that's why they're doing really well. They're not painting once a day or once a week or whatever. And that's okay too. You can still do a lot of stuff, but if you want to be, up there with the greats, they're putting in the time and effort. And like I said, Joe McGurl's going to be there tomorrow. And unfortunately, I'm going to miss it, but it's only, I think it's $45 if you're a non-member, and that's going to be a show and a half. And Dawn DeMears was there last month. And I ran home to paint because he inspired me so much. So I love going to these demos. I appreciate you being here, and you can really learn so much by doing them, by coming to them. So see that little heart in there? It was a little mistake. I'm going to leave it there because that's my thing. So now I'm just going to put a little of these little suds in here. It was so funny. The girls that I was with, 2 of them were over 70, one was 76. I was the youngest, and we were boogie boarding in these waves. I don't recommend it for people our age because it was easy to get going, but getting up when you ended, forget about it. Whew, we almost drowned, but we did it. We're young at heart. Does anyone else have questions? I can do, like I started as a pastelist and I've done watercolors. I can do it all, but this is my love here. It's the easiest. It's the easiest to bring outside and do. Like I've seen people take their pastels outside and drop them. There goes $100. Yeah, I'm in love with oils and I probably will never go back. I actually even took a sculpture class recently, which I love, but then I'm like, I'm never going to be good at it. So a sculpture class. Yeah. In the winter, I do more portraits. I'll have models come to my house and we'll paint them. We'll set up some nice things. Again, if you go on my website, you can see a lot of the stuff that I'm doing at the time. But I do a little bit because I get bored. So I like to do a little bit of everything. By using lots of brushes, you see how I just went back and forth with the color? Now I can just put a few of these little, I was going to have a big one kind of flying through here. And then, I mean, you have to be really careful when it comes to putting seagulls and stuff in there because it can be really cliche. So I've kind of made them more of an afterthought than, something that was important. Because I wanted to feel like I wanted these seagulls to kind of give you the feel of the wind pushing these waves around. So it's just something to kind of lead your eye into the painting. This is kind of leading you back in there. So I'm really thinking about all the directions of my lines that I'm using in here. So hopefully you'll have Sam back. He is such a wonderful painter. I call his paintings sexy. They're just so sensual and soft and full of yumminess. So I just love his work. I'm sorry I had to take his place tonight, but hopefully you'll have him back. And he's simply one of the best that's going around here now. But we have so many good artists in this area. And they're all setting up shop in Gloucester. I know Stapleton Kearns and Dale Radcliffe just opened a new gallery. You got the what's the name? Fox Cove Gallery. You've got the Sindoti Gallery, which I'm going to be a new member with soon. And there's just tons and tons of galleries. John Caggiano and Susan Lynn. But yeah, if you have time to come up there next week in Marblehead, it's a blast and it's a beautiful area. So, and come up and do a painting yourself too. I don't know where I'll be. I always wait to see what the weather's gonna be before I decide what the tide is and so on and so forth. All right, Joanne, now you can come up. Because I think this is close to finish here. We'll take a nice picture. So now I'm gonna go in and put some nice finishing touches in here, nice thick paint. I want one wave to be more important than the other. And you can see these nice thick strokes just add a little bit of fun. You're welcome to come up and look at it. And when you see this outside in the daylight, you're gonna go, oh, this color.
Oh,
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's okay. I think it looks better. I'll finish. You stand on either side of it, how's that?
If you could take one with my
Oh,
camera. If you could take one with mine too, that'd be great.
Sure.